She said her dad was in special forces, and the cop laughed, until the SUV pulled up. They say trouble doesn't always look like trouble, not at first. Sometimes it pulls up slow, rolls down a window, and pretends it's just asking a question. Journey Wallace was about 10 minutes from home. Her backpack was slung over one shoulder, hoodie tied around her waist, and she was sipping the last of a lemon Snapple from the corner store on South Grandview Avenue in Little Elm, Texas. It was a quiet Saturday, mid-70s, sunny, kids outside biking, dogs barking in backyards. But just as she turned the corner onto her street, she heard the crunch of tires behind her. A Denton County Sheriff's cruiser eased up, pacing her steps. She glanced over and sighed. Not again. The window came down. "You live around here?" the deputy asked. White male, maybe early 40s, buzz cut, aviators. His voice was too casual, too familiar. "Yeah," Journey replied, not stopping. "Right up the street." "Mind telling me what you're doing out here?" Journey turned her head slightly, still walking. "Walking home. From my friend's house. 2 streets over." He pulled ahead and angled the car to block her path. She stopped. "There's been reports of some suspicious activity around here today. You match the description," he said, stepping out of the cruiser slowly. Journey blinked. "What description?" "Female, teenager, hoodie, backpack." She gave a short laugh. "You just described half the kids on this block." The officer didn't laugh. "You got ID on you?" "I'm 14. He looked her up and down. "You sure about that?" She stared at him. "What do you think I'm lying for? I live right there." She pointed down the street. 1817 Grandview. "My dad's Master Sergeant Darius Wallace. He's in the Special Forces." The deputy tilted his head, smirking. "Special Forces, huh?" She crossed her arms. "Yep." "That's cute," he said. "You kids watch too many movies." Journey's jaw clenched. She was used to adults not believing her. Teachers, store clerks, even random strangers. But there was something about this man's smile, like he enjoyed the doubt. Like her saying, "My dad's in the military," was the punchline to a joke he didn't mind telling twice. "What's your name?" he asked, suddenly serious. "Journey Wallace." "You got anything in that bag I should know about?" "It's got a notebook, a charger, and 2 half-eaten granola bars," she said, not moving. "You can check it when my dad gets here." The officer squinted. "So he's coming, is he?" "He's on his way." It wasn't a bluff. She had texted him as soon as the cruiser started following her. No emojis, no drama, just one line. "Sheriff stopped me. I'm on Grandview." He replied instantly, "On my way." Now all she had to do was wait. A car door creaked open from across the street. Mrs. Devine, who always swept her front porch 3 times a day like it was a ritual, stood on her steps, arms crossed. "You okay, Journey?" she called out. "I'm fine," Journey said, but her voice cracked, just a little. The officer turned his head toward Mrs. Devine but said nothing. Next, a teenager on a bike rolled up and slowed down. Then 2 kids who had been playing tag froze mid-run and stood still. People were noticing. Cameras were coming out. Phones were in hands. Still, the deputy didn't budge. Journey looked him in the eye. "You'll see, he's coming." But this wasn't about suspicion anymore. It was about power, and Halford wasn't ready to let it go. Officer Halford took a step closer, arms relaxed but eyes sharp. He wasn't yelling, he wasn't aggressive, but there was a tone in his voice, just enough to tell you he thought he was in charge of the whole world. "You say your dad's Special Forces," he said, glancing at her backpack like it had a secret. "What kind of Special Forces?" Journey raised an eyebrow. "How would I know that? I'm not in the Army." He gave a fake chuckle. "Right. But you sure toss the title around like you know what it means." "I know what it means," she said. "It means he's trained to keep people like me safe, even from people like you." That one hit. Halford shifted his weight and looked up at the small crowd forming along the sidewalk. "Look, I'm just doing my job," he said, louder now. "If someone reports suspicious behavior, I have to check it out." Journey's eyes narrowed. "And what exactly did I do that was suspicious? Walk?" "You matched the description." "You mean I'm black with a backpack?" Halford hesitated. "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." Across the street, a man with a salt and pepper beard was filming with his phone. He whispered something to his wife beside him, who shook her head slowly. A teenage girl on a scooter whispered, "That's Journey Wallace. She lives right there." Journey heard it too, and her voice grew louder. "Everyone here knows me. That's my house. Right there." She pointed again, but Halford didn't look. He reached for his radio. "Unit 241 on a 1029 with a juvenile requesting name verification. Journey Wallace, age 14. Claims residence at 1817 Grandview." She exhaled sharply. "Seriously? You're calling backup on me?" "Standard procedure," he replied, not making eye contact. Mrs. Devine shook her head from across the street. "That child don't lie, and her daddy's exactly who she says he is." Halford didn't respond. He was too busy pretending she hadn't said it. The silence was thick now. No one was talking, just the low static from his radio and the weight of being watched. Journey didn't flinch. She didn't run. "You can wait all you want," she said, staring him down. "He's coming. And when he gets here, I want you to explain this to him." Halford leaned against the hood of his cruiser, trying to act unfazed. "Look, I don't want any trouble, just doing a quick check." "You already caused trouble," she said, "and I hope you remember that when my dad shows up." The neighbors didn't leave. If anything, more eyes appeared. A boy holding a basketball stopped dribbling and leaned on the fence. A woman, walking her dog, paused at the corner, squinting toward the flashing cruiser lights that had just clicked on. Journey felt her phone buzz. One word, close. She didn't smile. She didn't even blink. She just looked Halford dead in the face and said, "You've got about 30 seconds to start acting like you've got sense." Halford's smirk was gone now. His hand grazed the holster on his belt, not to grab it, but just to remind everyone it was there. The air shifted, not loud, not dramatic, but heavy. "Listen, I'm not trying to escalate," Halford muttered. "We're just having a conversation, right?" Journey tilted her head. "Is that what this is?" But before he could answer, the sound of an engine came rumbling down the street. Deep, steady, no rush, just certainty. The black SUV rolled slow, steady, like it wasn't in a hurry to prove anything, because it didn't have to. Neighbors turned their heads. The camera phones lifted a little higher. The engine cut off. The door opened. Out stepped Master Sergeant Darius Wallace. He didn't need a badge, didn't need a uniform. He had on dark jeans, a gray t-shirt, and boots that had clearly walked through places most people couldn't even pronounce. 6'3", shoulders squared, eyes calm but alert. The kind of man who didn't have to raise his voice to command attention. He shut the car door behind him with one hand and walked toward them. No rush, no drama, just focus. Halford straightened up. It was subtle, but noticeable. He adjusted his belt, pulled his shoulders back like he'd just remembered someone might be watching. Journey didn't move. Darius stopped right beside his daughter. "You good?" he asked her first, not even glancing at Halford yet. "I'm good," she said, eyes still locked forward. Now Darius turned to Halford. "Is this the part," he said slowly, "where I ask why you're detaining my daughter in front of her own house?" Halford opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. "Sir, I'm conducting a routine check. We received a report." "Of what?" Darius cut in. "A kid walking home?" Halford cleared his throat. "She matched a description from a call we got about suspicious behavior." "She's carrying a juice bottle and a half-dead phone," Darius said, "in daylight, in her own neighborhood, surrounded by people who all know her name." "I didn't know that at the time, sir," Halford replied. "Did you ask?" Halford's silence answered that. Darius didn't raise his voice, didn't curse, but every word hit, like it weighed something. "I've served 18 years, multiple deployments. I've buried brothers overseas and come home to protect the community I live in. And today, my daughter, who's done nothing wrong, is being questioned like a suspect because she wore a hoodie and carried a backpack?" "It wasn't personal," Halford said, shifting on his feet. "I was following up on a call." "No," Darius said. "You were following your own assumptions. Don't dress it up." Mrs. Devine stepped closer now, arms still folded. "She told you who she was. She told you where she lived, and you laughed in her face." Halford's lips tightened. A teen boy spoke up from the back. "She said her dad was in the special forces. You acted like she made it up." Darius turned toward the growing circle of neighbors, then looked back at Halford. "Did she lie?" Halford looked down at the concrete for a moment. "No, sir." Journey stood tall. Her shoulders didn't sag. Her voice stayed steady. "I told you he was coming," she said. Halford nodded slowly, like someone finally hearing a language they pretended not to speak. But Darius wasn't done. He looked him in the eye. "You ever stop a teenage girl in a neighborhood like this again? I hope you remember her face, and mine, and the cameras, and the silence that followed every one of your questions." Halford swallowed. "Yes, sir." A long pause. Journey looked at her dad. "Can we go home now?" He nodded. They turned and started walking. But behind them, the neighborhood wasn't quiet anymore, because now everybody had something to say. They hadn't made it 5 steps before Darius stopped. Not because he was second-guessing, but because he was a father. And sometimes, being a father means knowing when something needs to be said loud enough for the world to hear it. He turned back. "Actually," he called out, "I think we need to finish this now." Journey paused, looking up at him. She didn't say a word, but she didn't need to. Halford, still by his cruiser, froze like he wasn't sure if he was supposed to respond, but Darius was already walking back toward him, slow and direct. The crowd hadn't budged. "You know what the worst part of this is?" Darius asked. "It's not the stop, not even the disrespect." Halford didn't answer. "It's the fact that you looked at a 14-year-old girl, calm as anything, and decided she couldn't be telling the truth, that she wasn't worth believing. You didn't see her. You saw a problem." "I didn't mean it like that," Halford muttered. "But that's exactly what you did," Darius said, "and that's the difference between a protector and a threat. A protector listens." The street was quiet again, except this time the silence didn't come from fear, it came from weight. Everyone was listening. Halford shifted again. "I understand your frustration, but—" "No," Journey said, stepping forward. "You don't." It was the first time she'd raised her voice. Not yelling, not dramatic, just loud enough to cut through everything. "You don't understand what it feels like to have someone decide who you are before you even open your mouth. You don't understand what it feels like to have to stay calm, stay respectful, stay safe, even when you're the one being cornered." Halford looked at her, not dismissively, not like he had earlier. She kept going. "You don't understand what it's like to know that if my dad wasn't who he is, if I didn't have someone coming, you might have kept pushing, maybe worse." A younger woman from the crowd nodded and whispered, "Say that." Journey took one more step closer, close enough that the whole block could hear her. "You're lucky my dad showed up when he did, not just because he's in the military, but because he has patience. Because he's the type of man who'll talk to you before he reacts. If it were someone else, this could have gone very differently." Darius didn't interrupt her. He just stood there, proud but quiet, watching his daughter speak truth. And Halford? He didn't speak. Not yet. He looked like he wanted to, but what was he supposed to say? That he misunderstood? That he overreacted? Because the truth was, everyone already knew. Then an older neighbor, Mr. Talley, who'd lived on that block for nearly 30 years, spoke from his porch. "She's not the first kid you've questioned around here like they don't belong," he said. "You just messed up this time because she had someone watching, but we've been watching too." Another voice joined in. "I saw you pull over that boy from up the block last week. Said his taillight was out. It wasn't." Halford looked like he'd been caught without his badge. Darius turned to him again. "You can't undo what happened, but you can start asking yourself why it keeps happening. You don't fix something by pretending it doesn't exist." Halford finally spoke, softer now. "I'll think about what you said." "You should," Darius replied, "because next time, it might not end this peacefully. And not every father's going to pull up with a calm voice. Some are going to be angry. And if you don't change how you show up in these moments, you'll be the one responsible when things go wrong." Halford gave a slow nod. Whether it was sincere or just self-preservation, nobody could tell, but he didn't say anything else. Darius turned back to Journey. "You ready now?" She nodded. They started walking again, this time without interruption. But something was different now. The silence behind them wasn't from fear, it was respect, and it followed them all the way home. They walked side by side, feet crunching lightly on the sidewalk. Darius didn't say much at first. He let Journey breathe, let the moment settle. Once they turned the corner, just far enough from the crowd, he finally spoke. "You handled that better than most grown folks I know." Journey gave a small nod. Felt like I had to. Darius glanced at her. You didn't just have to. You chose to. You could have screamed. You could have panicked. You didn't. You stood firm. She shrugged. I didn't want him to win. Darius smiled faintly. He didn't. But this isn't a game, Journey. It's life. And sometimes, no matter how polite you are, how clear you speak, how right you are, they'll still see what they want to see. She looked down at her sneakers. That's the part that makes me mad. I didn't do anything. I was just walking. I know, he said, and that's the part that makes me tired. They walked in silence again, just for a few steps. I was scared, she admitted, not because of him, but because I didn't want to make it worse. Like, if I said the wrong thing or moved wrong or talked back too much, you did everything right, he cut in. Every single thing. And even if you hadn't, that still wouldn't have made what he did okay. She nodded slowly, lips tight, a few more steps. Then her voice dropped a little. Do you think he'll actually change? Darius stopped walking. They were just a few houses away now, the familiar lawn decorations of their own yard coming into view. I don't know, he said honestly, but I know he heard you. I know he heard us. And sometimes that's the first crack in the wall. From behind them, the quiet hum of neighborhood life was creeping back in. Bikes rolling again, kids calling across lawns, a dog barking at a passing car. The tension had passed, but the memory stayed. Just as they reached their walkway, Mrs. Devine called from across the street. Darius? He turned. Thank you, she said simply, for showing up the way you did, both of you. Journey gave her a small smile. Then someone else approached, one of the younger women who'd been filming earlier. Maybe mid-20s, red braids, basketball jersey, phone still in hand. Hey, she said, I just wanted to say, your daughter? She's a whole legend, like, for real. Journey looked surprised. Me? The woman nodded. The way you stood there and told him the truth. No fear. That was powerful. Journey blushed, just barely. Thanks. She walked off with a nod, and Darius unlocked the front door. As they stepped inside, the air conditioning hit them like a welcome. Familiar, safe. Journey dropped her bag by the couch and sat down without saying a word. Darius stood in the doorway, just watching her for a second. You want me to make you something? He asked. Sandwich? Cereal? She shook her head. Can I just sit here? Of course. He walked over, sat beside her, not talking, just present, because sometimes that's what strength looks like too. But silence only lasts so long, and even stillness carries a message worth remembering. The house was quiet, not heavy, not tense, just quiet in the way homes get after something real happens. Journey sat curled up on the couch, hoodie back on now, arms tucked underneath. Her Snapple bottle was empty on the table. Her phone screen was still lit, but she wasn't texting. She looked over at her dad. Do you think this stuff ever stops? Darius leaned back in the recliner. Eventually, but not all at once, not for everybody. It stops in pieces, one mind at a time, one choice at a time. Journey sighed. Feels like it's always going to be me explaining myself to someone who already made up their mind. He nodded. That's how it feels sometimes. But don't ever get tired of being you. Because who you are, that scares people who are too small to understand it. That's not your fault. That's their work to do. There was a knock at the door. Darius stood, checked through the window, then opened it. It was Mr. Talley from across the street, still wearing his old fishing cap, holding 2 cans of soda. Brought y'all something cold. Thought maybe she could use it. Darius smiled. Appreciate that. He handed the sodas over, then hesitated. I was watching today, Mr. Talley said, and I kept thinking, I never had to worry about that kind of thing when I was her age. Not like this. Journey had stood up now, quiet, but listening. Mr. Talley looked at her. But what you did, that took real backbone. Don't let anyone ever make you feel small for standing tall. She gave him a quiet, thank you, and took one of the sodas. He tipped his cap and walked away. The door closed. Darius looked at her. You ready to go upstairs? In a minute, she said. They sat down again, this time closer. Journey leaned her head on his shoulder. He really didn't believe me at all, did he? Nope, Darius said. But you made him listen. And you made a whole street listen, too. That's more than most people ever get to do. She smiled, just a little. I think I scared him. Darius chuckled. Good. Keep doing that. They sat like that for a long time, not speaking, just breathing. And outside, life returned to normal. Sprinklers ticked on. A lawnmower hummed somewhere down the block. Cars passed by like any other day. But for the people on that street, for the neighbors who stood still, who watched, who listened, something had shifted. Journey Wallace wasn't just the girl with the hoodie anymore. She was the girl who didn't flinch, the one who told the truth, even when no one wanted to hear it. And her dad? He didn't have to wear his medals. He carried his service in his voice, in his presence, in how he raised his daughter to stand her ground without raising her fist. Sometimes, the strongest kind of power isn't loud. It's steady. It's calm. It's the kind that makes people stop, listen, and maybe, just maybe, change. If this story moved you, take a second to think about how often this happens without cameras, without witnesses, without someone pulling up in time. Listen to the kids around you. Believe them, protect them. And if you're ever in a position to stand between right and wrong, do it with grace, but don't back down, because somebody's always watching. And sometimes it only takes one voice to change the whole block.